3 people walked into the woods alone. 3 walked back out. That's the part everyone holds on to. I want the other part. Not how far it got, how close. Not days, not miles, inches. A campground, a trail, a tower above the timber. 2 of them you'll carry out to your car and check the back seat. The last one went somewhere a woman was sure no man could reach her. And by the time she understood she was wrong, everyone who could have come for her already believed she was fine. Save that one for last. You'll want the lights on. I grew up in a city where the dark has streetlights in it. So when she talked me into the mountains, into a real campground 2 hours past the last gas station, I thought the danger out there was the kind with claws. Something you could name. That's the part I had backwards. It's a small site up a fire road, a gravel lot, a ring of pines, a couple of fire pits, a board with a map nobody reads. We got in late in a cold mist that never quite turned to rain, and the lot was empty. Ours was the only car. I remember being glad. No neighbors, no noise, just us parked off in the far corner where the trees came in close. She did the fire. I'm useless at fires. We ate something out of a can, and we crawled into a 2-person tent built for 1.5. And I lay there listening to the sighs of the quiet. No traffic, no voices, just the drip of the mist off the branches. And under it, nothing. A nothing so total it had a weight to it. I'm not a camper. I'd half laughed about it on the drive up, but I'd packed a little folding knife and a kid's aluminum bat. Put the bat by my hand inside the tent, where she couldn't see, because I'd have been embarrassed. City guy, scared of the woods. I told myself I'd never touch it. I don't know what time it was when I woke. No phone, no signal, no reason to check. I just came up out of sleep all at once, the way you do when some animal part of you has already heard the thing your ears are still catching up to. I lay still, and then I heard it. A footstep, in the gravel, right outside the tent. Then another, slow, deliberate, coming around the side of the tent, an arm's length from my head through a wall of nylon. 1 foot set down, a pause. The next foot. Whatever it was walking, and it was walking around us. My first thought was a bear, a deer, some big, harmless thing. I held on to that as hard as I could, because the alternative was the way it moved. An animal in the dark doesn't care about you. It bumps, it snuffles, it crashes off. This set each foot down like it was choosing where to put it. Quiet on purpose. Careful. Animals aren't careful. I put my hand on the bat, and I did not move another muscle. She was asleep beside me, breathing slow, and I made a decision I still don't know how to feel about. I didn't wake her. Because waking her meant a sound, a rustle, a voice, and every part of me had decided the one thing keeping us alive was that it didn't know I was awake. So I lay there in the dark, and I listened to it learn us. It went all the way around, a full circle. The footsteps moving from the side to the back, to the other side, to the front where the zipper was, and it stopped there, at the door. For a long, long moment, right at the seam where the 2 of us slept, there was nothing at all, just the drip of the mist, and the certainty that something was standing a foot away, looking at the one part of the tent that opens. And then it started again, around. The same slow circle, the same careful feet. It wasn't passing through. It wasn't lost. It walked the same loop a second time and a third, the way you pace a thing you're measuring, the way you walk around a car in a lot, deciding. I have never in my life held so still. My arm went dead under me and I let it. I counted the loops to keep from screaming, 3, 4, and somewhere in there the bat stopped being a weapon in my head and started being a joke. A foot of aluminum against a wall of nylon and a thing that had all night. I wasn't going to fight it. I was going to lie still and hope it picked some other reason to leave. This went on, I think, 15, 20 minutes. I had no way to measure it except by my own pulse. And the whole time, not one word, not one heavy step, nothing that wanted to be heard. It never tried the zipper. It never touched the tent. It just kept walking that patient circle, like it was in no hurry at all, like it had decided we weren't going anywhere. And then, slowly, the steps moved off, toward the tree line, not running, not startled, the same even pace going away that it had coming in. I listened until I couldn't hear it anymore, and then I listened for an hour past that, because not hearing it didn't mean it was gone. It just meant it had gotten quiet enough. I never slept again. I lay there watching the nylon go from black to gray, gripping that stupid bat, waiting for the next footstep that didn't come. When the light finally came up cold and flat through the mist, I unzipped the tent an inch at a time, and I crawled out into a wet, empty campground. Same gravel, same pines, ours still the only car, like nothing had been there at all. I went to the edge of the lot where the steps had walked, looking for, I don't know, a print, a scuff, proof I hadn't dreamed it. But it had missed it all night. The gravel was wet and packed, and it held nothing. No track, no mark, not one sign that a living thing had circled us for 20 minutes. Just my word and a feeling and a bat I was ashamed to be holding. I sat down on a damp bench and tried to make myself believe it was a deer. That's when I saw the man coming through the trees, on foot, from the woods. No car had come up the road. I'd have heard it. He came straight across the lot toward me, and his hand was resting low at his hip, near something on his belt. And for one cold second, I understood exactly how I looked. Scruffy, unshaven, camo pants, a knife in my pocket and a bat in my hand, alone at dawn in an empty campground. He was a ranger. He asked my name, slow and even, eyes never quite leaving my hands. Asked what I was doing up here. Said he'd left his truck down at the lock gate and come up the fire road on foot in the dark. Quiet, on purpose. I told him about her, about the tent, and I made myself set the bat down in the gravel where he could see it. He waited until she sat up in the tent flap, blinking, before his shoulders came down even a little. Only then did he tell me why he'd been out walking these woods before first light. And it wasn't to check our permit. He said there'd been reports, 3 weeks running, a man, going around the campgrounds up here at night, walking up on people in the dark. He didn't say what happened to the ones he reached. He didn't have to. He just told me flat that they hadn't caught him and that he worked the small sites, the far lots, the ones with one car in them. And I felt the whole night turn over and show me its other face. The empty lot. I'd been so glad it was empty. No neighbors, no noise, just us off in the far corner where the trees came in close. I'd picked that corner because it felt safe. But a man who hunts the dark doesn't want a full campground. He wants the one tent nobody will hear. The empty lot wasn't luck. It was the whole point. We didn't stumble into the safest spot. We parked in the exact shape he was looking for. We packed up fast. The weather was an excuse we were both grateful for. And on the drive down that fire road, I kept doing the thing I still do, going around the tent in my head the way he went around it. Side, back, side, the door. 20 minutes of a careful man learning where two sleeping people were and exactly where the only way in was. He had all night. He touched nothing. He didn't fail to get in. He just hadn't decided to yet. And then the sky started to go gray on him. They never caught anyone. The reports just stopped, the way they do when the season ends and the camps go quiet. No print, no face, no proof he was ever real, but the sound of patient feet in the gravel. I don't camp now. I tell people it's the cold, but the truth is I can't lie in the dark in a thin wall of nylon and not hear it. Something walking the slow, careful circle of a man who has all the time in the world and is only deciding. So if you ever pull into an empty lot and feel lucky, understand that you might be the only car for the same reason he is. That one circled a tent for 20 minutes and never decided to open it. A patient man, working the dark, waiting on a choice he hadn't made yet. You can almost tell yourself that's luck, that the worst kind of stranger is the one still making up his mind. The next one had already made his. He wasn't behind a woman on a mountain, working up to something. He was ahead of her. He'd been ahead of her for a while. I hike alone, but I'm never really alone. I've got an old shepherd mix named Bodhi who comes everywhere with me. He's gentle, lazy, honestly. In 9 years, he has growled at maybe 3 things. I've learned to take it seriously when he does, because he's almost never wrong. There's a ridge trail a couple hours north of where I live. Long switchbacks up the face, pine the whole way, then it opens onto bald rock at the top. I do it on quiet weekdays, shoulder season, when the lot's nearly empty. That's the whole point. Nobody up there but me and the dog. That afternoon, there were maybe 4 other cars at the trailhead, a couple of trail runners, an older pair with poles. I started up around 3, figuring on being back down before the light went. Plenty of time. That was the plan anyway. About 40 minutes up, I passed a guy coming the other way, then he wasn't coming the other way. He'd stopped, turned around at the bend below me, and started up again, the same direction as me. Pack on, head down. I didn't think much of it. People change their minds. The thing was, he didn't pass me. On a climb, a faster person passes. They say, hey, they go by, they're gone. He didn't. He held back. Same gap, switchback after switchback, close enough to hear, never close enough to see his face. So, I did the normal thing. I stepped off the trail, made like I was fixing a bootlace, and waited for him to go by and leave me be. He stopped too. Down around the bend, out of sight, he just stopped and waited for me to start again. That's when Bodhi first looked back down the slope. Not growling yet, just looking, ears up, not down the trail where the man had been, off to the side of it, into the timber. Like the man had stepped off the path and was working his way up through the trees instead. I sped up, pushed hard through 3 or 4 switchbacks, breathing burning, telling myself I was being dramatic. At the next long straight, I looked back down the whole stack of bends. The trail was empty. No pack, no man. He wasn't behind me anymore, and for about a minute, that felt like relief. Then I came around the upper bend, and he was ahead of me, above me, on the trail, sitting on a rock, like he'd been there an hour. And I want you to understand what that means on a switchback. The trail crawls back and forth up the face, miles of it, but the slope between the bends is straight up through the trees. He'd left the trail and climbed the face on foot to get in front of me. No pack now, no poles. He dropped all of it somewhere below. That's the detail that turned my stomach. His gear was gone. A man doesn't ditch his pack on a mountain to go faster, unless going faster is the only thing that matters. He hadn't been hiking the trail. He'd been using it to know where I'd be. And then he cut the corner to be there first. He didn't say anything, didn't get up, just sat on that rock at the edge of the drop, where the trail necks down to one body wide, and watched me come up toward him. There was no way past him but past him, and below us the trees we'd both have to be in. I stopped maybe 30 feet short, pretended to drink water, watched him over the bottle. He watched me back, completely relaxed, the way you wait for a kettle. Not a hiker resting, a man who'd arrived early and had nowhere else he needed to be. And then Bodhi started to growl, low, steady, the one I'd heard maybe 3 times in 9 years. At the man on the rock, hackles up the whole length of his spine, head low, locked dead on him, the way he had never once growled at another person on a trail in 9 years. Whatever that man was, my dog had already worked it out, and he wanted us nowhere near him. I didn't go up. Every instinct said the top was safety, open rock, a view, somewhere to call from. But that meant squeezing past him, into the neck of the trail, close enough to touch, and putting him at my back on a mountain where he'd already proved he could be wherever he wanted to be. So I broke the rule you're told never to break up there. I turned around, and I went back down. Going down, I couldn't watch behind me and watch my feet at the same time, and the drop on the outside of every bend was real. So I let Bodhi do the watching. He'd stop, stare off into the pines beside the trail, growl, then trot on. And every time he stopped, I understood the man had come down off that rock, but he wasn't on the trail behind us. He was off it, down in the trees level with us, keeping pace through the timber the whole way down, never once stepping back onto the path where I could see him. Halfway down, I found his pack, propped neat against a trunk, 10 feet off the trail. Good pack, full, water still in it, a jacket, his phone, I think. Everything a person needs to come back for. He'd walked away from all of it to be standing where I was going to be. I got to the lot shaking. The older couple were loading their car. I didn't tell them much, just asked them to wait while I caught my breath. We drove out in a little line, headlights on, dusk coming down over the ridge. I never saw him come down off the slope. Somewhere off the trail, in the trees, he was still up there when the light went. Him and the pack he'd walked away from to be standing in my way. I keep coming back to the math of it. A grown man on a mountain made a choice. His pack, his water, his warmth, his way home, against being in front of one stranger on a trail. And he chose me. He set down everything he owned, because for that hour I was worth more to him than all of it. I've never been priced like that before. I hope I never am again. Weeks later, there was a found property notice on the trailhead board. A pack recovered off the switchbacks by a ranger. Unclaimed. Still looking for the owner. Nobody had ever come back down for it. A man will leave his phone, his water, his way off a mountain, and never once return to collect it. Unless, the whole time, he was never the one who'd lost his way. I've gone over the trail map 100 times since. The bends, where he was below me. where he turned up. And I keep landing on the same cold little fact. He didn't chase me. He never ran. He didn't have to. He just read where the trail had to take me and got there first. Patient as a man who already knows how the day ends. So if you ever feel a trail go quiet around you, and the person behind you isn't behind you anymore, don't speed up to lose him. He's faster than the trail. Turn around. Go back the way you came. The one stretch of mountain he hasn't already gotten ahead of you on is behind you. So far, you've been keeping score. One didn't get in. One got cut off before he closed the gap. You've been calling these people unlucky and lucky, and telling yourself you'd have run sooner, climbed faster, turned back in time. Be honest, you've been measuring the distance between you and them. The last one closes it, because the last man didn't need to get through a door or get ahead of anyone. He got into the one thing that was supposed to bring help, and he made it tell everyone she was fine, night after night, while she was anything but. The job is the loneliest legal work I know. A fire lookout, a single glass room at the top of a long steel stair, set on a bare knob of rock above 100 miles of timber. You watch for smoke, that's all. One person, one tower, one season. I took it because I wanted to be the only living thing for a day's walk in any direction. I got exactly that. And then I learned I'd been wrong about the only part. You're up so high the weather happens below you. Glass on all four sides, a cot, a stove, a pair of binoculars worn smooth by other hands, and a logbook. Every lookout who ever sat that tower wrote in it. Date, wind, what burned, what didn't. Decades of small, neat handwriting from people long gone. On the bad nights, I'd read it just to feel like the chair had been warm before me. Like I wasn't the only one who'd ever been this alone up here. Your only thread to the world is the radio. A district frequency, a metal box on the wall, a handset on a coiled cord. Every night at 9, dispatch runs the roll. They call each tower by its number. You key the handset and you answer with the same 3 lines. Every night, word for word. Tower secure. Glass clear. Look out well. You say it, they tick you off. They move to the next ridge. 3 little phrases. That was the whole shape of being kept track of. The first weeks were nothing but light. Long, gold evenings, the timber going blue. My own voice, the only one I heard between the 9 o'clock calls. I got comfortable. I stopped locking the hatch at the bottom of the stair, because who climbs 140 steel steps to bother the one fool who chose to be up here? That's what I told myself. Nobody comes this far for nothing. Which was true. He didn't come for nothing. It started with the dog I didn't have and the footsteps I did. One night, well after the 9 o'clock roll, I heard the bottom hatch. That particular clang of a boot on the first steel tread, carrying up the stairwell like a struck bell. Then a second. Then the slow, even climb of someone coming up out of the dark, in no hurry at all, toward the only lit window for 100 miles. I want to tell you I had a plan. I had a glass box, a stove, and a logbook full of dead men's handwriting. The stair is the only way up and the only way down. Whoever was on it was between me and the ground. So I did the one thing left. I crossed the room quiet, and I dropped the bolt on the trapdoor in the floor, the hatch the stair comes up through. And I stood on it, and I waited for the climbing to stop. The steps came up to the landing just under my floor, and stopped. A foot from the soles of my boots, through an inch of wood, somebody was standing in the dark. I didn't hear breathing. I didn't hear words. I heard him settle, the way a man settles when he's prepared to be somewhere a while. And then, through the trapdoor, calm and quiet and close, he started to talk. At first, I thought it was nonsense. A few words, spaced out, no sentence to them. Tower. A long quiet. Glass. Another quiet, longer. Look out. Just single words, drifting up through the floor in a flat, patient voice, like a man reading a list he already knew by heart and was in no rush to finish. I told myself he was drunk, lost, out of his head, that the words meant nothing, that I was scaring myself with a babbling stranger. I almost believed it. People say crazy things in the dark, but there was nothing loose in how he said them. He wasn't raving. He was spacing the words on purpose, the way you leave a gap for someone to answer, like he was waiting between each one, waiting for me to fill it in. And then I understood what the words were. Tower, glass, lookout. They were mine. They were the start of every line I said into that radio at 9 o'clock. Tower secure, glass clear, lookout well. He was feeding me the first word of each and leaving the silence where the rest belonged. He wasn't babbling at a stranger through a door. He was quoting my own check-in back to me, and he knew the gaps. I did not answer. I stood on that bolted trap door with both feet, and I did not make one sound. And the quiet that came back was worse than the words, because he let it sit. He didn't knock. He didn't try the hatch. He didn't ask to be let in or tell me to open up. He just waited under my floor in the dark, patient as the rock the tower stood on, like a man who had all the time the night could hold, like he'd done this before. I thought about the radio. 9 o'clock was hours gone. The next roll wasn't till tomorrow night. If I keyed it now and broke in off schedule, dispatch would hear me, and someone would start the 2-hour drive and the long climb. I reached for the handset in the dark, and that's when the part I still can't shake happened. Down through the floor, in that same flat voice, before my hand even touched it, he said my tower number. And then he said, "Secure for the night." He answered the radio. Out loud. From the landing. My number, my sign-off, in a voice pitched low and even and practiced. The exact cadence you'd use keying a handset. He wasn't talking to me anymore. He was performing the thing dispatch would hear. The thing that tells the world this tower is fine and nobody needs to come. And he had it perfect. Better than mine. Like he'd been saying it a long time. I keyed the handset and I called dispatch myself. Off schedule, low, fast, my number, a man at my tower, send someone. The speaker hissed. A long, awful pause. And then a tired voice came back and asked me to confirm my tower number because, and I will hear this till I die, that tower had already checked in secure tonight. On the 9 o'clock roll, same as every night this week, all clear, look out well. I hadn't keyed that radio at 9 o'clock in 8 days. I'd been eating, reading the logbook, watching the dark. I'd let the roll go by because I was comfortable, because nobody comes this far for nothing. But every one of those nights, dispatch had ticked my tower off the list. Secure, clear. Well, somebody had answered for me, in my number, in a voice they never once questioned. For 8 nights I'd been accounted for by the man standing under my floor. And the whole season turned over and showed me its other face. He hadn't stumbled onto my tower in the dark. He'd had my frequency, my number, my 3 little phrases, for weeks. Long enough to learn the cadence, long enough that the only people who could ever come for me had been told, in my own kind of voice, that I was fine. I wasn't a stranger he found at the top of a stair. I was a name on a list he'd already taken over. To everyone listening, I'd been safe for a week, because he'd been being me. Dispatch went quiet, then sharp. Stay locked. Don't open. Units coming. 2 hours of road. 140 steps. I knew the math, so did he. I stayed on that bolt with the handset gripped in both hands, and I listened to him not leave. No more words now. Just the small sounds of a man waiting a thing out, shifting his weight on the landing one step beneath my feet, deciding, I think, whether 2 hours was long enough for what he'd come up to do. It wasn't the units that moved him. It was the light. The east glass started to go gray, the timber coming up out of the black below me, and somewhere in that graying I heard the first tread take his weight. Then the next. Going down, the same even, unhurried climb in reverse. 140 steps fading into the trees, no faster at the bottom than the top. He didn't run. He'd never been in a hurry. He just decided the night was over and walked back into the country I'd come here to be alone in. They never found him. Tracks gave out on the rock below the knob. The logbook was untouched. No print on my hatch, no face, nothing taken, nothing left. But the district pulled the radio traffic. 8 nights of my tower checking in secure. 8 nights of a calm, even voice keying my number on schedule and signing off well, while I sat 10 feet above it, comfortable. Never once wondering why no one ever wondered about me. I don't do high, lonely work anymore. I tell people the climb was bad on my knees. The truth is I can't sit anywhere a voice is supposed to come for me without thinking how easily a voice can be answered by someone else. He didn't break a lock or break a window. He took the one thread that tied me to help, and he wore it, patient and perfect, until the people meant to count me had counted me safe for a week. So if you're ever the only one for 100 miles, and a flat, calm voice starts saying the words you say to be found, understand you may already be off everyone's list. Let's never meet. Three of them. One who walked the circle and didn't choose. One who got there first. And one who answered the radio in her own voice while she stood 10 feet above him in the dark. Sit with that for a second before you close the tab. Ask yourself which one you'd least want on the other side of the nylon, the timber, the floor. Tell me in the comments. And if you'd rather hear them coming than not, subscribe and keep the next one's footsteps where you can count them.